Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. And we are on a special night. This is a Thursday night episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Unfortunately, I couldn't make the show on yesterday afternoon. I had some family issues that came up, but I could not let another week pass without doing an episode of the show. So I decided to hop on tonight, give you guys a few minutes, continue our training camp because training camp is officially started. It's no longer pre-training camp, so it's the training camp edition of the position breakdowns. So far, we've covered all of the defensive positions, and now all we have left is the offense. So for the next 3 weeks, we'll be talking wide receivers. Next week, we'll talk offensive line, and then we'll close it out by talking running backs and tight ends. There's no point to talk about quarterbacks because we only got three. They're not going to change. I don't think the order's going to change, and there's not really a lot to say about it. So I want to make sure we go through all the positions before we get to the first preseason game. And we've got 3 weeks left, so we're going to kick it off with the offensive side of the ball. So thank you guys for joining tonight. I see X has come in pretty quick. Thank you guys for joining us from X. If you guys haven't done so already, the people watch from X, if you get a chance, go over to Facebook, type in DC4L, check out the Facebook group. A lot of great content, a lot of great conversation, a lot of giveaways, a lot of prizes. We have some fantasy football leagues. I think there are still 2 spots open. So if any of you guys are fantasy football fanatics and you want to have a nice competitive group of Cowboys to compete against, go over to the DC4L page, reach out to Amanda, and she'll get you linked up on one of the fantasy football pages. As you guys know, the off season, things can happen at the drop of a dime. Situations change. There's always a new story to break. There's always a sound bite or a clip to watch. So if some of you guys aren't able to keep track of all the things that's going on in training camp on your own, join the DC4L Facebook group so that you can be up to date on all things Dallas Cowboys. I see we got William Wiggins joining us tonight. William, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. We got Lee Harrison back again. Lee Harrison, thank you for joining us as well. Appreciate you joining us on a Thursday night. Speaking of news dropping at the drop of a dime, there's a big story that just broke less than an hour ago. It's not Cowboys related right now, but hopefully it will be in the near future. So the Las Vegas Raiders signed former first-round pick, in my opinion, top 5 defensive tackle in the league, Christian Wilkins, to a major contract. Halfway through the season last year, he had a Jones fracture, which is a fairly serious injury, but it is something that you can get over in 9 months or so, 9 to 12 months. So he had surgery, and he decided to rehab instead of going through multiple surgeries. It looks like right now he's on the road to recovery. He would probably be available. This is just me speculating. I don't have any facts to back it up, but just researching the injury. Based off that injury, he would probably be available week 2, week 3. So you probably need about 9 months to get back to 100%. So apparently the Raiders felt like you didn't take your rehab serious, so they voided the remaining 3 of his 4-year contract, and they cut him. So now Christian Wilkins is officially a free agent. Now, I'm sure they're going to be going through a lot of appeals process, and the union's going to file some grievances. And he'll probably get some of, if not all, that money back. But as of today, one of the top 5 defensive tackles in the NFL is an unrestricted free agent. He doesn't have to clear waivers. You can sign him tomorrow if you want to. Now, how this applies to the Cowboys is we just so happen to have one glaring position of need. that to me is the one tech position. Jerry needs to step up and make this happen. I mean, I know it was a major injury, but this guy is best of the best. Even if you get him at 80%, that's probably still borderline Pro Bowl caliber for the type of player that he is. Like I said, he's probably going to get a lot of his money back. So I don't think you're going to have to sign him to a huge contract. Coming off an injury, you could probably get him 1 year prove it deal. I would guess somewhere in the range of $10 to $15 million. I know we got the stuff going on with Michael Parsons, but this is a no-brainer decision for the team if you can get him in a Cowboys jersey. Even if it's for 12 games, that's 12 games of borderline Pro Bowl talent surrounded by all these pass rushers, all these running backs, all these linebackers, all these cornerbacks we brought in. So just adding him would give us that last piece of the puzzle that I think we've been desperately missing. So William Wiggins, yeah, the talk is he wouldn't rehab the way they wanted him to. Reading into it a little bit more, and again, the story broke less than an hour ago, so information is kind of just trickling down, but it's trickling down quickly. It sounds like because of the injury, they wanted him to have another procedure. It's an optional procedure, but he chose to rehab instead. Now, from the little bit I've read, and if you're on X, there's always some online doctors who give their thoughts. What they're saying is whether he rehabs himself or he has the surgery, the outcome, if he rehabs correctly, should be about the same. So it's not like he's taking a step back. And I think he's the type of player that he's going to rehab the way he's supposed to. And apparently William Wiggins, I guess, is not optional, according to the Raiders. But I think he's going to win. I think he's going to get some of his money back. And I think that'll help in free agency because now you could probably get him at a bit of a discount because he's going to get paid from the Raiders as well, probably by the end of the year. So I just wanted to put that story out there. I'm sure that'll start circulating around the Twitterverse pretty soon. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Antoine Wood Sr. says he needs to sign Parsons and Wilkins tomorrow and make Wilkins' deal incentive laden. Antoine, we're on the same page. I agree 100%. That's exactly what they should be doing. So, I was gonna ask if your former Cowboys Antoine Wood's dad, but I think he spells his name differently. I think his name has a U in it. But thank you for joining us, Antoine Wood Sr. Marty Val says they stay healthy. They're in the Super Bowl. They'll beat Eagles by 17. If we get Christian Wilkins along with the additions we've made already, I don't want to put us in the Super Bowl, but we're definitely going to be a lot better than people expect us to be. Because to me, outside of the question marks at cornerback, which they all could be great, they all could be injured, nose tackle is the only real position of question on this team, in my opinion. Every other position, in my opinion, is solid. I have some serious questions about that nose tackle, and they haven't done a lot to address it. And Charlie says he'll probably end up with Washington. You know what, Charlie? Washington has a lot of defensive tackles. I mean, I think they drafted one last year in the first round. I think they signed Javon Hargrave this offseason. They still have the big kid from Alabama. So I wouldn't be shocked if Washington did sign him, but that's one team that's loaded at defensive tackle. So I would probably put them closer to the bottom of the list, but they got a ton of money. So if you can add another piece and you got that much money, that could probably happen. But I would probably look at the teams that have the most cap space. And of course, Washington is one of them to be one of his potential suitors. All right, so that's it with that's a good point. Other teams definitely do things different than us. You know, I would, before we get started, let me say this, and then we'll go into the topic of the night, which is the wide receiver position. I was talking to some friends the other day, and I normally don't read a lot in the training camp talk, but day one of training camp after practice was a little bit disturbing. When you see Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs holding their own little mini press conferences, and then you see a guy like a CD Lamb chime in on it the next day, I'm really getting concerned about the future of this roster and how we'll be able to retain players. Because just being a realistic fan, we haven't been to an NFC championship game in 26 years and running now. So we win some games, but we're not a winning franchise. We're the most hated franchise by the media. Every player on the Cowboys gets chastised, good or bad. So you're not getting the praise and recognition that you were getting in the 90s and the 2000s to an extent. And then your owners badmouth you in the media as well. What's the incentive of a player to negotiate with this team? It's not like the 90s where every major player on the team had a podcast. No, not a podcast. Back then it was a talk show, radio show. Now everybody has a radio show. Everybody has a podcast. So we don't stand out there. There was a time where every top player was in the media. I mean, it's still going on now. You look at every major sporting network and there's a former Cowboy who's a personality. But there are other teams that are doing that now. Guys are actually training to be radio and television personalities. More jobs opening up. The cachet is starting to wear off with the Cowboys. And then you add on that, the owner doesn't want to pay you and he's bad-mouthing you in public. And you have to defend yourself against the owner of the team that signs your checks. It's not a good look for the future. I just put it like that. And we got a lot of contracts coming up. He's throwing shots at Micah. He's throwing shots at Dak. He's throwing shots at Diggs. And these guys are close. It's not going to get better if it keeps going this way. And we got guys like Tyler Smith coming up, Deron Bland coming up. It's a lot going on. And these guys are watching. And the money's getting large out there. And there are a lot of teams with it. And we just saw a guy like D-Law sign for a ton of money after doing basically nothing. I feel like there's going to be a time where we start getting players and they just say, look, I'm not going to re-sign. I'm not going to play the song and dance with you. I'm going to play my rookie deal out. If you want to franchise me. If not, I'm not even negotiating. I'm just going to wait, hit free agent, and see who else wants me. I feel like we can get to that point. I hope we don't, but I could definitely see that on the horizon. And yeah, Charlie saying, going back to Christian Wilkins, he'll probably sign with the team that has a shot. Even the Eagles having the D tackle they have, I can see them going after him. Yeah, we talk about this in the past. Once a player gets his money, then he wants to compete for championships. I think he's going to get his money back from the Raiders. I don't see how they can win this grievance. So his next step could be trying to compete for a ring. I would probably put a team like the Vikings at the top of that list. I would probably put the Texans at the top of the list. What's another potential team I could see? Detroit could find a way to scrape up some money, and the Niners. But the Niners got their own problems paying wide receivers. But if I were a betting man, I would probably look at those 4 teams as potential candidates. And then you could probably throw in the Falcons with that in that list as well. So those are probably my 5 I'd be watching. Great point, Charlie. You've already said look at what you can do after you retire. Sale is highly overrated. It gets more overrated every year. Exactly. Guys are getting multi-million-dollar deals for podcasts while they're playing. And if you look at the top podcast out there, you've got one podcast by a guy who played his career with the Tennessee Titans, small market, and his co-host is a guy who was a fringe bottom of the roster guy who shuffled around between the Titans and the Raiders. So you're not talking about 2 big markets there. And then you look at Pat McAfee, who was a kicker who played for the Colts. So you don't have to be from a highly recognized brand to get a job in radio or television anymore. We got Ray Roach joining us tonight. Appreciate you joining. Always the optimist. This is our year no matter what's going on. Let's see. All right, so that's my rant. I just wanted to put that out there. I've been talking to people off air about that quite a bit since the Michael Parsons thing. And again, before we go on, I think Michael Parsons signs. I just think we're going to have a little bit of a media war for the next couple of weeks until he does. But I'm confident he signs his contract. Okay, let's go ahead, go to the topic of the night, which is the wide receiver position. We are continuing our training camp roster breakdown. We've completed the defense, and now we're going to move on to the offense. So I'm not going to hold you guys long. We're already at 18 minutes, and then I got started with the topic. So let's go ahead and get right into it, and let's go to this wide receiver position. Now, this is a very interesting position. I think the top, we know what the top is. We're all very excited about it. But as we go through the rest of the list, between 3 to 6, 3 to 7, it's going to be a crazy shakeup on who goes where. But let's start at the top of the totem pole. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. Arguably top 3 best wide receiver duos in the league. Watching training camp clips, and I normally don't get overly excited about training camp clips, especially before the pads come on. But what I do like to see is chemistry and cohesiveness. The team looks like they're cohesive, barring the few scuffles that we've heard about, especially these 2 guys. You already see CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. If one of them makes a big play, you can see the other one jumping up and down from the other side of the field. Lamb makes a long run. George is sprinting, trying to get to the end zone with them. They've already got their own little handshakes. When you watch the team come onto the field from the locker room, those 2 are always side by side. Every clip I've seen. So I love that for this offense, because I still have some concerns that once we get into the season, that there could be a little bit of animosity brewing when one guy's getting more throws than the other one. But the fact that they're building a relationship now, that'll kind of help soften the blow when one of them has a great game. Before I saw the relationship growing, I would think one of them may be pouting if they're not getting the ball. But now I could see maybe it's more of an encouragement thing. But if it continues 3 or 4 weeks, then we'll probably get to see some problems. But I think them building a relationship right now really helps us when one of them has a baller game that the other one's not pouting. But George Pickens is a special talent, one of the best deep ball receivers in the NFL right now. Great body control, great hands, perfect complement to CD Lamb. I think these guys are gonna really be special together. I didn't put 3 wide receivers as the starters because I really feel like we're gonna see a lot of 12 personnel this year. So that's gonna be 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. So I think this is gonna be our starting lineup: Pickens and Lamb, and then you throw out Ferguson and whoever's the other tight end with him. But it doesn't get any better than this with our starting wide receivers. And we're at 22 minutes, guys. For those of you who are joining us, feel free to get in the comments. This is an interactive show. We love to hear your questions. We love to hear your comments. We love to hear your thoughts about the topics we're discussing or any Cowboys topics. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that like button. And if you're not on YouTube, go find me at Bluff City Cowboys. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell. We got a lot of great content coming for you guys this offseason. So Antoine Wood says Ferg and Schoonmaker. I could definitely see that being an option, but I think we're definitely going to see a lot of 12 personnel. We got a lot of position flexibility with our tight ends. They're all big. They can all block. They can all run routes pretty well. So I think we're going to see a lot more 12 personnel this year. And we'll talk about that further when we go to the other positions. All right, so we talked about the starters. I almost did put 3 right here, but I couldn't because I really could not differentiate. And I didn't want to put them as backups because I don't know which one is the backup, to be honest. And thank you for joining us, Jeremiah Robinson. Appreciate you tuning in. So I put them as the next men up. Jalen Tolbert, last year's starter, former 4th-round pick, really has progressed every single year that he's played. He's taken a step forward from not playing a snap to putting up wide receiver 4, 5 stats his second year. Last year, putting up consistent wide receiver 3 stats. If he follows that progression, maybe he solidifies himself as a number 3 or even competes as a number 2. And then I put Kevontae Turpin here. Without question, the most explosive guy on the team. This offense, if we believe what Shotty says, is going to be based off of explosiveness and separation. There's no one better, probably in the league, than Kevontae Turpin. Based off of the training camp clips I've been seeing so far, he's been playing a lot of reps with the ones. You've seen him out wide. You've seen him in the slot. You've seen him in the backfield. I think they're going to have a plan for him. I don't know what that split will be, but I think either him or Tolbert will probably be our wide receiver 3, next man up off the bench. I'm really looking forward to seeing preseason because I don't think we're going to see a lot of Pickens and Lamb. I think Turpin and Tolbert are going to be heavily on display along with the next guy that we're about to talk about, and Antoine Woods already alluded to it. So the next guy is Jonathan Mingo, and I have him as the wild card. 6'2", 220 pounds, legit 4.445 speed. Played 2 years in the league. Thank you to Lunatic for joining us tonight. And DJ Dog, thank you for joining us as well. I mean, it looks like everybody's coming on Thursday nights. I may have to start continuing to do the show on Thursday nights until the regular season starts. Let me know what you guys think about that. We've got roughly 6 weeks until the season starts. So I may go to Thursday nights until the season starts. I don't want to conflict with Thursday night football during the season, but I can definitely keep this going um at least until week 1. But yeah, Mingo, he has all the talent you wanted a receiver. He just has not put it together over the last 3 years. He's got jump ball size. He definitely can be a red zone threat with his athleticism, leaping ability. He's not really a catch the ball away from his body guy, so that concerns me. But if the offense is going to be focused on spacing and separation, like they say, he should be able to make some waves. But I have him listed as the wild card because he could be wide receiver 3. He could be wide receiver 6 on the bubble. I could even seeing him get cut. I don't know where Jonathan Mingo places in the pecking order because Turpin and Tolbert, while I both think they're talented, Mingo is probably more talented than both of them. And if he can tap into that, he could easily be wide receiver 3. If Turpin, Tolbert, and one of these other guys we're about to discuss in a minute step up, he could be the 6th receiver. And he doesn't play special teams, so he could just as easily be off the team. So I don't know what to expect from him or where to put him at, but his placement on the roster is going to determine heavily what happens with all the young guys that are below him. DJ Dog says there was a play with a fake slot screen to Turpin, and they screen to Blue on the other side. That puts the defense in a tough spot. I saw that play. That was a really good play, putting 2 athletes on the field like that. When everybody's so focused on Turpin, they snuck Blue out of the backfield and threw a little quick screen/shuffle pass to him, and he got an open field. You know, it's strange when you look at this team. For you guys who follow the show quite a bit over the past 4 years under previous regimes, I would always tell you guys in the offseason, we're only looking at 6'2", 220, 4'5" receivers, 4.55 receivers. The team overnight has flipped into an explosive offense. George Pickens runs a legit 4.4. Cavante Turpin runs a legit 4.3. Tolbert's a 4.4 guy. You got Blue coming out of the backfield, who's a 4.3 guy. Miles Sanders is, in my opinion, probably still a 4.4 guy. So we have a lot of speed on this offense now, and there are a lot of things we can do. Joe Milton, the backup quarterback, runs a 4.5. So there are a lot of things that they can do to add some wrinkles to the offense coming up in this year. Antoine Woods, I haven't forgot about him. We're about to talk about him in a minute. DJ Dog says, with Pickens added, the wide receiver group has everyone in the correct spot. Turpin, Tolbert, and Mingo having to fight for the 3 spot is good for their development. They can't cut it, at least you know. 1,000% agree. I did not want to see another year of us hoping Turpin can take a step forward. I mean, he has the past 3 years, but I would hate to have to rely on that. I did not want to have to rely on Mingo tapping into his second round talent and becoming a legitimate guy. So you're 100% right. That takes a lot of pressure off of them because even if none of them produce between Mingo, Turpin, and Tolbert, you still got 2 1A, 1B receivers who are both capable of 100 catches and over 1,100 yards. So anything these guys can give you is just a bonus to the offense, because I think between Lamb and Pickens that they can more than carry the load for the receiver group. All right, so we've talked about the starters. We've touched base on the next men up, and we've talked about our wild card. And let me know you guys' thoughts, because I'm kind of up in the air. As we talk about the rest of the receivers, Let me know where you think Jonathan Mingo fits in the pecking order. If I had to go gun to my head today, I would put him at borderline wide receiver 5. Tolbert showed me a lot last year as the wide receiver 2. I think putting him at wide receiver 3 and giving him even more one-on-one opportunities, I think he could take advantage of them. Turpin's just super explosive. He might not be the best. He might not be a better receiver than Mingo, but I just think when you see him on the field and you watch the plays he can make, I think you just have to put him in a position where he gets in the offense more. And for that reason, I have Mingo at 5, wide receiver 5. Antoine Woods has him at the same place. DJ Dog says, I think we see Span forward more this season. Yeah, we talked about this earlier in the show, DJ Dog. I put Pickens and Lamb as the starters because I think we run a lot of 12 personnel this year. And I think the reason for that is because of a guy like Brevin Span forward taking a step up, as well as a Schoonmaker giving some competition. Charlie, I'm with you there as well. I don't think he makes the team also. I think we only keep, because we're so top heavy, I think we only keep 6 receivers. And if 1 through 4 are all talented, wide receivers 5 and 6 have to play special teams. And Mingo does not play special teams. Somebody's going to have to really be an advocate for him at final cuts to keep him on the roster if he's wide receiver 5. If he's wide receiver 6, he's pretty much cut. Because wide receiver 6 on any roster cannot be a guy who doesn't produce on special teams. And to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if he did get cut and he cleared waivers. DJ Dog saying, I'm a Flournoy fan for that last spot. I like his size. He is tough after the catch. DJ Dog says the sound is off. Let me know if the sound is off for you guys as well, because I don't see anything on my end that indicates my sound is off. Rika moves the chains. Thank you for joining, Rika. Rika asked the question, how long before Turpin faces a suspension for the weapon charge? And how does that affect the number of wide receivers we carry? I don't think he goes to trial until after the season. I saw that, Charlie. I don't think he goes to trial until after the season, so I don't think that affects us this year. And even if he did go to trial this year, I don't see it being more than 2 or 3 games. So I couldn't see that being a major effect on the wide receiver group, even if he did have to face some type of suspension this year. Because again, I think Tolbert is more than capable of being the wide receiver 3. And if you look at most NFL teams, once you go past wide receiver 1, 2, and 3, wide receiver 4 plays maybe 20% of the snaps. And then wide receiver 5, unless he's a trick play guy or somebody gets hurt, he rarely touches the field outside of special teams. So even if Turpin did happen to miss 1 or 2 games, I don't think that would make them be forced to keep an extra guy on the roster at wide receiver. Jack Meeker asked the question, would Turpin even count the receiver since he's a special teams ace? Well, they signed him to a pretty big contract this offseason. I think it was $5.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just look that up to be on the safe side. Turpin signed a 3-year, $13.5 million contract. So that's about $4.5 million a year. That's not special teams money. That's wide receiver 3/4 money. So I think the increase in salary is an indicator that they plan on seeing him in the offense. But great question. Jack Meeker says Mingo has 2 years. Tolbert's on his last year. I mean, that's true. But this is a new coaching staff. They're not playing the who do we have longer game. They're trying to win football games. And if Mingo gives you nothing and Tolbert's your best receiver, Tolbert's going to touch the field and Mingo's going to get the axe. With him owning it, and it seems like he has it, feels late this season due to a deal and no trial. That's a possibility as well, but I don't think a late season suspension would affect training camp decisions. And Charlie agrees with me. Turpin will be used more than he has in the past. Again, Shoddy has preached explosiveness and separation in this offense. There's nobody better than Turpin on this team. So I think he's going to be a major part of what we plan on doing going forward. Shoddy also came out and said we're going to see a little bit more trickery. Going to see some more wildcat. Going to see some single wing. You're going to see wide receivers in the backfield, similar to what the Cardinals did last year. If you guys remember that Cardinals game last year when they had the wide receiver in the backfield and ran that toss play and he just destroyed us on the sideline. Remember, Clayton Adams is now our offensive coordinator from the Cardinals. Expect to see stuff like that this year as well. And I think Turpin is going to be a major part of that. All right, so we've pretty much talked about all of the veterans on the team. Let's get into some of these young guys. So first off, we'll talk about the second-year players who are trying to make a name for themselves. And somebody brought up Flournoy earlier. I think it was DJ Dog. We've got Jalen Marino Cropper, undrafted guy, showed some flashes last training camp. He was one of the go-to targets throughout the preseason. We've got Jalen Brooks, another height, weight, speed guy who suffered from injuries in college as well as in the NFL. Injuries kind of derailed his season last year. But another guy with all the traits you would want for a wide receiver. 6'2", 210. Didn't run fast at the combine, but I think he was running injured. Plays a lot faster than he looked. Long arms, big hands. Explosive guy. And then we've got Ryan Flournoy, guy we drafted last year. He was everybody's pet cat, coming from a small school. So we all kind of knew that the learning curve would be steep. He's coming into his second year. Another guy with tremendous traits. And normally year 2, year 3 is when you see a wide receiver start to flourish. So maybe we can see a little bit of Flournoy tapping into that 4.4 speed and that 40-inch vertical that he showed in college. I mean, he has all the traits that you're looking for. So one of these three guys, I think, is going to make the roster. Who do you guys think is the guy that makes the roster from this group? They're all super athletic. I think Marino Cropper fits the mold a little bit better of a Schottenheimer receiver. But Flournoy and Brooks, they both have it. And if they can step up, I think they both have just as good of a chance. And I keep harping on this. The coaching staff has preached competition. So the best man is going to be the guy who gets the job. None of these guys have a sponsor in the coaching staff. They're all second-year guys. None of them were signed or drafted by our coaching staff. So it's all about who can compete, who can fit in the scheme, and who can hold off the other guys. The other guys are the guys we're about to talk about in a minute. Yeah, you guys have a side conversation talking about play action and the pistol and wildcat and all the other stuff. Definitely looking forward to seeing all of that this all season, along with a ton of motion. It sounds like they've been implementing motion in every snap. Now we've seen that before in the past, and it didn't translate to the regular season. I'm hoping this year it does because we got a lot of talent at wide receiver who can help us do that, move guys around and make plays. All right, so we've talked about the young guys who are returning. Let's talk about the new guys who are joining us this year. Now, these guys do have a bit of a sponsor because they were two undrafted free agents that were basically recruited to come here and come and compete and get opportunity. We've got Josh Kelly, the receiver from Texas Tech, not very explosive, kind of a 4.7 runner, but he's super shifty. He knows how to break in and out of routes from the slot. He's a big slot with great feet, but he kind of lacks athleticism. But somebody gave him opportunity to come here, so he's gonna get a shot. And then we've got the guy that everybody loves, Trayshawn Holden. His wide receiver coach from college is our assistant wide receiver coach. So you already know he has some type of sponsor in the locker room. Super athletic guy, super competitive. He's already been kind of talking before the preseason, before training camp. So now hopefully he can put the pads on and kind of back up the talk. But these guys are definitely coming for spots. Like I just said before, the guys last year don't have sponsors. These guys were essentially handpicked by the coaching staff. So they're on a level playing field with those other three. To me, I think they're fighting for wide receiver 5 or 6. So it's going to come down to if somebody goes out, who can fill in at slot X or Z, and then who can play special teams. I think those are the two biggest things they're going to be looking for. Special teams is definitely going to come first. And then after that, who can fill in at the slot if they want to put Lamb at the Z? Who can fill in at the X and make a play one-on-one when Pickens sits out 2 or 3 plays? Those are the kind of questions these guys have to answer. But again, outside of Josh Kelly, when you look at these young guys, all you see are athleticism, talent, and competitiveness. And I really don't know who's going to win the position. I really have to wait till I see pads come on. DJ Dog says Holden's coming for heads. Jack Meeker says I'm rooting for Holden. So I think Holden's going to be the pet cat in training camp. Again, I got to see pads come on. But if I had to go pre-pads, who I think wins wide receiver 5/6, I would probably put Flournoy as a top candidate just because I love the traits, and I think the only thing holding him back last year was just lack of experience. If he trained this offseason, I think he has the traits to be a legitimate NFL wide receiver. Not a starter, but good enough to be a guy coming off your bench making a couple snaps. Jack Meeker says CD pretty much said don't expect him to be a slot player down in, down out, and smiled hard. I can see that. I think he's going to play a lot more of the Z receiver, which is going to put him off the line of scrimmage, but it's going to put him in more of a vertical situation. I can see him playing a little bit more X because now you can put Pickens on the other side, and you can't just put 2 or 3 guys on them like you could in years past. Lamb is an amazing slot receiver, but I feel like one of the major reasons we had to put Lamb in the slot is because he was our only weapon. And if you put him anywhere else, teams could easily target him. So putting him in the slot allowed him to have more of a 3-way go, left, right, or up the middle. But now that we have a legitimate receiver to play with him, I think they could start to move him around more, and I definitely expect to see that. And to me, that's what makes these 5 young receivers I talked about so important, because one of them is going to have to play a little bit of slot. One of them has to play a little bit of X, because you may see Pickens and Lamb on the same side quite a bit, and we'll let teams pick their poison. DJ Dog says, I like Flournoy and Brooks, but slight edge to Flournoy. I'm right there with you. I really like Brooks, though. I'm just concerned about the injuries. But he has the look of an X receiver, an explosive X receiver. I think Flournoy can play all 3 positions. Same thing with Holden. I think he's the 3-position guy as well. I think that kind of gives them a leg up. So we pretty much gone through all the receiver positions. We've only got one left, and that is the only guy that I know for certain is on the bubble. And that's free agent signing Paris Campbell. Now, what's interesting about Campbell is he's a traits guy. Everything you look for in a shoddy receiver. I said this about Tolbert. Paris Campbell's the same thing. 6'1", 4.3 speed, kind of shifty. He puts you in the mind of Tolbert and Jalen Marino Cropper. I think if given the opportunity, he could possibly make the roster. But I just think those young guys are too talented, and they're going to be given more opportunities. Paris Campbell would have to be playing at wide receiver 4 level, in my opinion, to make this roster, which means he would have to beat out Turpin and Tolbert. And I just don't see it. And that's kind of one of the reasons I think Mingo may be a guy. I could have put Mingo on the bubble as well. I talked about that earlier. He's my wild card. But Paris Campbell is definitely on the bubble. He's going to get some opportunities in training camp, I think, because he's a veteran. So when they go second unit, third unit in training camp in preseason games, I think he's going to show some flashes because of his speed and his know-how and being a reliable target. But he has to really ball to get a spot on this team. Yeah. I forgot too until I looked it up today, Charlie. He's the definition of on the bubble. I don't think he has any ties to anybody in the coaching staff. I just think he was a guy, before we signed George Pickens, we just needed to add another guy who fits the Schottenheimer role or mold of being explosive, being a veteran, and having an understanding of how to play in space. And I think he may have just been the best option available. But now that Pickens is here, I don't think he has any shot of making this team. And DJ Dog brings up a great point. He's seeing Brooks as a gunner on special teams. If he can win that gunner position, that guarantees him a spot on the team. You guys know how I feel about special teams. The 3 most important positions on special teams are gunner, jammer, and personal protector. If you can win one of those 3 spots, you're guaranteed a roster spot. So if he's the gunner, all bets are off, and the other 5 guys are competing for 1 spot. All right, guys, that's pretty much all I have for this week's show. We're at 50 minutes, so we got out of here pretty early, even with my Christian Wilkins rant at the beginning of the show. If anybody else has any questions or comments, any other topics you want to touch base on before we get out here, let me know. I don't know if you guys have been watching the clips that have been circulating out of camp from John Machota and Patrick Walker and Kyle Yeomans, but it's a lot of encouraging things. The receivers look to really be explosive. The running backs appear to be explosive, so we don't have a lot of what we saw last year from our running back room. Like again, hard to judge without the pads on. But I saw your comment, Riker. Hard to judge without the pads on, but the defense, they've said the defense has been really communicating well. Every clip I see from the defense, they've gotten quite a bit of interceptions, but also they're chasing the ball down and they're trying to make plays and strip the ball. I really love to see that, even if it's day 1 and day 2. That tells me that they're going to be active when it comes to playing against offenses. So I'm looking to see how that progresses. Jack Meeker asked a question, are y'all concerned about Steele's ankle? He did sit out today with an ankle injury. Again, it's day 2 of training camp. The pads haven't even come on yet. Terrence Steele is going to be a starter this year. I'm not concerned about it right now. Even if he doesn't practice until preseason starts, I'm still not concerned about it. We have roughly 6 weeks until the season starts. So unless it's something that needs surgery, he has more than enough time to get over it. He's a 6-year veteran, 6-year starter. Not much he hasn't seen already. Offensive line is pretty consistent. He's already a pretty good run blocker. So it's not like he has to make some drastic changes to try to fit in. So I'm not too concerned about that. But Riker, you do bring up a great point. When he's bad, then he's good, then he's bad. He has been fairly inconsistent the past couple of years. But again, I think he's a really good run blocker. I think if we believe what Shotty says, we're going to see a scheme that makes the run look like the pass and vice versa. What that tells me is we're going to get out of vertical pass sets and we're going to start doing more jump sets and half sets. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, pass sets are when you see the tackles come out of their stance, how deep they go before they touch the defensive end. In the past, the Cowboys did what was called a vertical set. So you see the guys kind of step, and they may be back 5 to 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage before they take on contact from the defensive end. You can do that when you have extremely athletic tackles like a Tyron Smith or Doug Free, because they're athletic enough that even though you're giving the defensive end all that space, they're athletic enough to counter it. Unfortunately for us, Terrence Steele does not have that type of athleticism. And putting him in a situation where he gives the defensive end pretty much the ability to go around him, go inside or go through him, that's not good for Terrence Steele. I think because they're going to start making the run look more like the pass, we're going to see something called a half set, which means instead of stepping back 7 yards, he may step back 2 yards and then initiate contact. That'll allow him to use his long arms and be able to get his hands on the defensive ends and use his physicality, because Steele is a physical player when he gets the opportunity. Or we may see something called jump sets. And a jump set means when, even if it's a pass play, instead of a guy going out of his stance and going back, as soon as the ball snaps, his first move is engage and then separate. If we see more of that, I think we're going to see a much improved Terrence Steele, because again, Terrence Steele is a physical player. Terrence Steele has huge hands, and Terrence Steele has almost a 7-foot wingspan. So if you have a guy with that type of length and strength and power, and you allow him to get his hands on a defensive end early, I don't care who it is. It's going to make you a better player instead of letting some freak athlete get basically a 5-yard head start against a less athletic guy. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. Jimmy, I'm not going to butcher the last name. If you could put it phonetically in the comments, I'd appreciate it. But Jimmy asked the question, how much different will Shotty be than McCarthy? He's talked about this at length throughout the preseason, Jimmy. I think it's going to be extremely different. He's even thrown out shots here and there in press conferences about how he's going to do things different. For one, he said he's going to do a lot more motion, which is something we haven't seen. For two, he says we're going to do a lot more speed routes, which is something we haven't seen. Because in the McCarthy Garrett scheme, you see receivers running 4-5 second routes where you're running deep crossers or 15-yard digs, and the quarterback has to wait 4 or 5 seconds for the play to develop before he can get rid of the ball. Now I think we're going to see more of 2 to 3 second routes where guys are going to be placed in space and be allowed to get open early. And then you're going to incorporate more play action and bootleg and read option, which is something we didn't see McCarthy do. And that's going to help bring down those linebackers, bring down those safeties to open up more one-on-one opportunities with the outside receivers. So it's definitely going to be overhaul, Jimmy. You can see that in the few training camp clips as well as the personnel that's been brought in. Because I talked about it earlier in the show. If you look, okay. I just read Charlie's comment. If you look at the receivers we brought in, I said this earlier in the show. For the past 20 years, when you look at who the Cowboys sign or draft, 90% of the time, he's 6'2", 4.5 speed, 220 pounds. You can go back and look at the history. We've only drafted 2 receivers in the past 25 years that didn't fit that criteria. That's how consistent they've been. But you look at the team this year, George Pickens is a 4-4 guy. They made an emphasis to re-sign Turpin. They brought in Paris Campbell. They brought in Trayshawn Holden. They're bringing in athleticism, and they're going to emphasize getting fast open. They bring in Jaden Blue, 4-3 guy, when they had a chance to get much bigger running backs. They emphasize bringing in Miles Sanders, which I know Minharez. Thank you, Jimmy. They brought in Miles Sanders, which I know the fan base doesn't like because he had 2 bad years with a terrible team in Carolina. But before that, he was a very good player for the Eagles. He's still an athletic guy. He's still a dual threat guy. The fans complain about Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams has averaged 40 catches a season over his career. The guy has versatility. They're bringing in versatile players. They're not just bringing in big lumbering running backs who can only run through the A-gap like we've seen in the past. So there are a lot of differences in this scheme and in this personnel that I think are going to be going to come into a play, Jimmy. Great question. I see we got Jeff joining us. Jeff was supposed to join me tonight, but he got tied up. So hopefully we can get Jeff back again before we get to preseason. DJ Dog says Arizona was the number 2 rush offense on yards per carry with 3 undrafted free agents on their line. Adding to that, they also had Will Hernandez, who most people thought was slow and stiff and was gonna basically lumber himself out of the league, and he was more than serviceable as a Cardinals offensive lineman, along with those 3 undrafted guys. Steele is our only undrafted free agent guy slated to start. Hopefully, Clayton Adams and Connor Riley get this bunch going. That's a great comment, DJ Dog. I don't think people understand how great of a offensive mind Clayton Adams is and what he can do in terms of talent development. I think we're going to see that as the offseason progresses. And I also think that's one of the reasons we signed 50,000 guards who were former tackles on this team. Jack Meeker says Guyton has looked good these first 3 days. I've seen Patrick Nosey Walker and I've seen Vach Lombardi really speaking highly of Guyton. That's really good to hear. But for me, I got to see it with the pads on. Riker says, I'm here for the Tylers. I want an entire offense named Tyler and name all the coaches Tyler too. I'll add on to that, Riker. I want to see us bring in a nose tackle named Tyler. I don't know where we're going to get him from, but we definitely got to get a nose tackle named Tyler to add on to that because we've been having a lot of luck with these Tylers lately. Charlie, I always love hearing Charlie because he's a great stat guy. Cars were 8th in rush EPA and 10th in SR. They had a good run game. And again, like DJ Dog said, 3 undrafted guys on the line. I was looking up an interesting point the other day. For the people who don't have faith in Javonte Williams, because he's never been a high rushing guy. He had 900 yards his rookie year, and then after that, he's essentially averaged 500 to 700 yards per year. I want you guys to go take a look at James Conner's stats before he went to Arizona. I got him pulled up right here. He didn't play as a rookie much. His next year, he had 900 yards, similar to Javonte Williams. The following year, he had 400 yards. Javonte had about 700 his second year. His third year, he had 700 yards. Javonte had 500 his fourth year. So basically, James Conner's production pre-Arizona are the same stats that Javonte Williams put up with Denver. And James Conner's last 3 years with the Cardinals were 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. He was 700 yards and 15 touchdowns, 800 yards and 7 touchdowns, 1,000 yards. So while Javonte Williams may not be the household name we want, if you put him with a good coaching staff and a good scheme and a good offensive line, he can definitely produce and give you some quality stats. Charlie explained the SRS success rate for anyone that was wondering. Thank you. I couldn't think of what that was either, Charlie. So thank you for clarifying that. All right. Jack Meeker says Booker looks like he's been here a year already by his size and strength. We're gonna have some growing pains with Booker, but again, the talent's there. Clayton Adams has done a lot more with less, and the rest of the offensive line around him are all veterans. So you got one highly talented rookie surrounded by a lot of talented veterans. I think nothing but good things can happen. All right, guys. So I think that's pretty much all we have for this week's show. I see Russell Dyer joined us late in the show. Russell Dyer, thank you for tuning in. Had a lot of people joining us from X tonight. So once again, for all you X people, if you get a chance, one week, join us on YouTube. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on what we talk about during the show, because you guys have really, really been active in terms of watching, I would love to see you guys participate in the show. Jimmy says, I like Malik Davis, but something happened. The only thing that's happened is he hasn't been given an opportunity and he's been injured. Once again, I think he's going to be at the bottom of the totem pole, but we'll talk about that next week when we discuss running backs and tight ends. Yeah, Charlie, thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate you tuning in. For you guys that don't know, Establish the Pass is Charlie, Dallas Cowboys chat. I hope I got that right. Haven't seen you go live in a while, Charlie, but we're definitely looking forward to seeing you go live again. So, of course, if you ever want somebody to go live with you, let me know. I'm going to do a couple of Friday shows, especially during preseason when the games are active. We can kind of talk about the game. So, Charlie, if I can get you on for a Friday show, I'd really love to get your thoughts on where the team is looking once we actually get to see some real footage and get to talk some real statistics. Because I know you're a great stat guy, and you also are knowledgeable about the players. I don't want to bring you on here when it's all speculation. I want it when the bullets are really flying and we can really get your thoughts about what we see. So, Charlie, make sure you clear your schedule one Friday night so we can do a special show later on in training camp. DJ Dog, Booker's pass pro in college was very good. He's not the pull-out type of guard, but he was the consistent top guard in the draft. Yeah, he's going to have to do some pulling and trapping with this scheme, but I think he's more than capable of doing that. All right, I see we got the Bears fan joining us, saying the Bears waiting on this easy win. This is Jeff's cousin, Chicago Bears fan. Appreciate you tuning in. When we play the Bears, I'll definitely be looking for you to join us on the show so we can discuss what happened. And I'll just leave it at that. All right, guys. So I put it on here that you can join us every Wednesday at 8:30 Central, but the views were really active tonight. So I'm strongly considering going to Thursday nights for the rest of training camp. So be on the lookout. I'll let you guys know next week whether or not I'll be moving from Wednesday nights to Thursday nights for the rest of training camp. To be honest, Thursday night will probably be better for me because I have so much going on Wednesdays. But we'll see what happens. Either way, join us next week for the Fifth Quarter Podcast. We'll be continuing our training camp position breakdown as we talk about the running back and tight end positions. The team will have put on pads by then, so we'll have a better look at certain players and what we can expect, and we'll keep you up to date with all the news and notes from the Cowboys. Fingers crossed. Hopefully next week we'll be talking about a Micah Parsons contract signing or a Christian Wilkins contract signing. But until then, I will see you guys next week, either Wednesday or Thursday. Appreciate everyone who joined us in the chat today. You guys really brought it as usual. As you know, show us fuel by Fifth Quarter Nation. Thank you guys for joining. We'll have to get Jeff back another week because he missed this week. But appreciate you tuning in. I see Mendoza joined us late. Thank you for tuning in, Mendoza. Appreciate you seeing what we're talking about tonight. Join us next week. Everybody on X, hit us up on YouTube, getting those comments. I want to hear what you guys think. Thank you for joining tonight. Appreciate you tuning in. As always, let's go Cowboys. I will see you guys next week.